Roscoe Albert Holm, better known as Wattie Holm, was a Major League Baseball outfielder and third baseman who played for the St. Louis Cardinals for 7 seasons between 1924 and 1932, missing the 1930 and 1931 seasons. Wattie was a member of the Cardinals for their first World Series in 1926. Batting left and throwing right, he would play his best season in 1927, accumulating 120 hits and 3 home runs. Holm unfortunately would suffer from mental illness later in his life, and almost 20 years after departing from professional baseball, Wattie would tragically murder his own wife shortly before killing himself. Roscoe Albert Holm was born in Peterson, Iowa, and as a child he moved with his family to Alton, Iowa. Holm got his nickname Wattie when he was young. Holm's father wanted him to become a dentist. He would attend the University of Iowa for a year before leaving to pursue his career in baseball. Holm would marry schoolteacher Ella Powell in Spencer, Iowa in 1923. They would have a daughter named Margaret and a son named Robert. Wattie made his major league debut with the St. Louis Cardinals in 1924 after playing in the minor leagues at Syracuse. He spent the majority of his career going back and forth between the majors and the minor leagues, but eventually stayed in the major leagues between 1926 and 29. In 1927, Holm had a .286 batting average and drove in 66 runs while playing in 110 games. In the fall of 1929, the Cardinals advised Holm to have surgery on his nose and tonsils. Holm would not agree to this being done, but eventually did have the procedure in the spring of 1930. This would cause a delay in his preparation for the 1930 season, a season in which he would play with both the Houston Buffaloes in 1930 and the Rochester Red Wings in 1931. For his final years in professional baseball, Wattie would split 1932 between the Cardinals, Red Wings, and the Columbus Redbirds. He would later serve as a scout for the New York Yankees, as well as play for St. Louis farm team, the Syracuse Stars. In 436 games over 7 seasons, Holm recorded a .275 batting average, .410 for .1493, with 207 runs, 6 home runs, and 174 RBIs. He also posted a career .955 fielding percentage. In 2 World Series, 1926 and 1928, he hit .136, 3 for 22, with 2 RBIs. In the early 1940s, Wattie Holm was running a gas station in Storm Lake, Iowa, and was managing a semi-pro baseball team, the Storm Lake Whitecaps. In 1942, he trained as a machinist to support the World War II defense effort. Later on, he would reside in Lakeview, Iowa, and ran a factory that produced and manufactured baseball bats. Holm would be turned down for a managing job with the local baseball team in early 1950 due to growing concerns regarding his mental health. After enduring an unfortunate series of business failures, Holm began suffering from depression. Holm had a family history of mental illness, as his brother Marcel had committed suicide. In May 1950, Wattie Holm quit his job at a sporting goods store in Spencer, Iowa. On May 19th, at his home in Everly, Iowa, Wattie Holm would obtain a .38 caliber revolver and fatally shoot his wife Ella, while also seriously wounding his daughter Margaret. After this, Holm would end his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot blast to the head. Son Robert was away working in a different city when the shootings occurred. Fred Sint, the owner of the home where the family lived, said that Wattie had a calm conversation with him minutes before the shooting took place. He said that the family was getting ready to move to Lynn Grove, Iowa the following week. After daughter Margaret recovered from her injuries, she lived with the family of Holm's former teammate, Billy Southworth. The story of Wadi Holm is a tragic tale of the pressures of playing professional baseball, conflated with the curse of a genetic predisposition toward mental illness. What made Wattie Holm finally snap and not only take his own life, but the life of his wife Ella. After the events, a verdict of murder and suicide was given in the shootings by Lyle Frank Clay, the county coroner. Clay said Holm lived in the second-story apartment in the home of Frank Sint, a far cry from the affluent lifestyle of other former baseball players. Could this frustration have compounded an already fragile mind? Sint told authorities he heard several shots at about 8:30 a.m., and that in a few minutes the Holm's daughter Margaret, an 8th grade student at the time, ran down the stairs screaming. Holm's body was found at the bottom of the stairs, while his wife's was discovered at the top. Wattie Holm is not the only baseball player to go down this path. Former Boston Beaneaters catcher Marty Bergen also suffered from mental illness, and in January of 1900, at his home in Brookfield, Massachusetts, Bergen would murder his wife and 2 children with an axe before using a straight razor to forcefully cut his own throat, nearly severing his own head completely off. On July 18, 1989, California Angels pitcher Donnie Moore would shoot his wife Tanya 3 times with a .45 caliber pistol in their Anaheim Hills home, with 3 children in the house at the time. Wife Tanya Moore and daughter Demetria, then 17, fled from the house, and Demetria drove her mother to the hospital. Tanya would survive the shooting, but back at the house, while still in the presence of one of his sons, Moore would put the gun to his own head and commit suicide at the age of 35. In fact, between 1889 and 2022, over 90 former or current Major League Baseball players have committed suicide. In 1934, pitcher P. Ridge Day, another former St. Louis Cardinals player, would slit his own throat with a hunting knife after an unsuccessful operation to repair his throwing arm. Clyde P. Ridge Day, who was known for throwing a baffling screwball, had also been seeking treatment for lapses of memory. He was 32 years old. Edgar McNabb, who pitched for the 1893 Baltimore Orioles, committed suicide after shooting his girlfriend after only 1 season in the major leagues. McNabb shot his girlfriend of 1 year, Louise Kellogg, twice through the neck at a hotel in Pittsburgh before turning the gun on himself. Apparently, Kellogg had been planning on ending the relationship. On September 17, 2015, a former minor league baseball player and ex-Rays prospect, 27-year-old Brandon Willie Martin, used a bat to fatally bash his father, uncle, and a bystander inside a Corona, California home. He would be convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors said he lashed out after his family put him on a 72-hour mental health hold. His defense lawyer maintained his client suffered from mental illness. Martin had a history of behavior problems and was known for clashes with his coaches. The mixed-race defendant, who lived with his parents, reportedly called his black father a slur, used skin lighteners, and hated being black. He also attacked his mother in one reported incident, putting scissors to her neck. In the spring of 1930, former Athletics, Senators, and Reds shortstop Sam Crane would be convicted of the murder of his girlfriend, Della Leader, and her boyfriend, John Oren. On October 3, 2020, Major League Baseball knuckleball pitcher Charlie Haeger, who had played for the Chicago White Sox, San Diego Padres, and the Los Angeles Dodgers, committed suicide after becoming a suspect in the shooting death of his ex-girlfriend, Danielle Breed, who went by her maiden name, Long. In one of the most horrifying incidents I researched, former Major League Baseball pitcher Sergio Mitre has been sentenced to 40 to 60 years in prison after being found guilty of the rape and murder of the young daughter of his former girlfriend. The gruesome attack took place in July of 2020 in Saltillo, Mexico. The 22-month-old victim died of hypovolemic shock. Mitre pitched in Major League Baseball from 2003 to 2011, ending his career with the Yankees, but he also played for the Chicago Cubs and the Florida Marlins. Mitre grew up in Tijuana, Mexico, where he trained in the arts of Kempo, boxing, and wrestling due to frequent street fights. In his 2007 season, Mitre won a career-high 5 games. He also set career bests with 27 games played, 27 starts, 149 innings pitched, and 80 strikeouts. Mitre had a streak of not allowing an earned run in 24.2 consecutive innings. This streak lasted 5 starts. He made Marlins history with his 1.12 ERA in May, the second lowest for a starting pitcher during May in Marlins history. A propensity for injuries would eventually spell the end for Mitre's major league career. After all this, I'm left wondering, what is the connection between baseball players, mental illness, suicide, and sometimes violent crime? Other athletes certainly face similar pressures that baseball players do, but there's just something about the batter at the plate, waiting for a 100-mile-per-hour fastball that has the speed and force to kill, that conjures up a unique type of anxiety and pressure that, perhaps over time, does have a mental effect on some people. When I think of men like Wattie Holm, I can't help but think about the Jim Pearsall story, Fear Strikes Out, which was a book and a movie, where the 22-year-old outfielder Pearsall had a mental breakdown in 1952, beginning a lifelong struggle with bipolar disorder. As for Wattie Holm, it would seem mental illness just took over, but one can't help but wonder what other motives or reasons, if any, he had for committing the terrible act that he did. Was there a root cause of his mental illness? Was it disappointment over his career? Was it genetic? Was there an undiagnosed head injury suffered at some point during his life? And what of men like Sergio Mitre, who commit an act so heinous and so evil? How do we come to terms as a society that sometimes talented people are capable of the most hideous crimes, that our favorite players, someone we admire and look up to for their skill and accomplishments, and for that matter, anyone, could be a monster underneath? For more information, I recommend visiting baseballalmanac.com, which features a fascinating and extensive list of former baseball players who committed suicide.